experiencing pain in your muscles and aching, and just then go on and go on and then go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can't go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in a gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter, because it's all worth it.
Everyone has a problem with time, but the day is 24 hours, and we sleep 6. Now, I know there's some out there that say, whoa, I need 8. Well, I say just sleep a little faster, because the bottom line is we have 6 hours of sleep, 24 hours are available, so you have 18 hours now available to your work, your family, your hobbies, and also to learn something new or to do something new, which could easily be that you want to learn a new language, or that you want to read as a New Year's resolution, have to read a book every week, or you say, I'm going to go and reshape my body. So you're going to go and take this hour out of your schedule and say, I'm going to train an hour every day. So this is, for most people, a huge challenge, but it is totally doable, I can tell them, because the kind of things that I did when I came to this country, I mean, I went to school, I was working in construction, I was working out my 5 hours a day, I was taking acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight, I was doing all of those things. I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste 1 single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time, and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time, you make the time.
This need of coming to America, I mean, when I started learning about America at the age of 10, the geography lessons, and learned about America and about and so the first photographs, I remember those photos in the textbook, but also in Super 8mm film footage that they showed in the classroom, you know, about the Golden Gate Bridge and the Empire State Building and the 6-lane highways and all this. I said, what am I doing here in Austria with these little roads? I want to go over there and I want to be part of the big deal. And so I had always this desire, and I felt like that the only way I ever would get to America, because in those days it wasn't common that you buy yourself a ticket, because no one could afford that. So I had to kind of accomplish something big that takes me to America. And then when I read about this guy, Reg Park, who won Mr. Universe 3 times and then became a star in Hercules movies, and then was in Italy filming, and then in Hollywood filming, I thought that could be the ticket. I should become Mr. Universe, I should become kind of a second Reg Park. Of course, no one really bought into that. My parents thought I was totally insane. And I remember that I hung up pictures above my bed, you know, for inspiration, pictures of Reg Park in his posing trunks and all that. My mother was so concerned, she called the local doctor, and she had him analyze the wall because she thought that there's something terribly wrong, that I have naked man above my bed, and all of my buddies had women hanging above their bed, and so she was concerned about that. And but they just, I think that my parents really thought that there was something terribly wrong of being that driven, you know, because I would come home at lunchtime, and then instead of having lunch, I would do 200 sit-ups, and then at night I would go to the stadium and I would be lifting weights. I would come home at 10 o'clock at night and I would be continually lifting weights. So it was like one of this insanity in the military. I would continue lifting weights no matter how the training was and how tough the basic training was. I would always then lift weights afterwards. And as a tank driver, I would have on the side of the tank in the toolbox, I would have my weights, my barbells, my dumbbells, and my exercise bench and everything there in order to be, at any given time, if we stopped driving the tank and maneuvers at 2 in the morning, I would be able to pull out my weights and again lift for 2 hours my weights. So I was really a fanatic about the whole thing, but it's the only way you really get where the way I succeeded, because I became at the age of 20 the youngest Mr. Universe in London, in the history of bodybuilding, because the youngest before then was Reg Park, the guy I was talking about, with the age of 24. But I became the youngest with 20, but it was because I was like so serious about the whole thing, and it worked. With the age of 21, after I won my second Mr. Universe title, I got an invitation from Joe Weider, who was the publisher of all the muscle magazines in America, and also the person that had the biggest warehouses of weight training equipment and had food supplement companies and all this, and he brought me to America, and so there I was. I mean, 6 years after my dream started, I was in America.
I think it's the most important thing that we have a very clear vision of where we go. A goal, where do we go? Because you can have the best ship in the world. You can have the best cruise liner, but if the captain does not know where to go, that ship will drift around the world and out there at sea and will never end up anywhere. And this is exactly the way it is in real life. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have a vision, you just drift around. You're not going to be happy. This is why it is so important to have that vision. Now, I created that vision in Austria because I grew up after the Second World War. Austria, right along with Germany, lost the Second World War, thank God. And the problem was that everyone was so depressed because they lost the war that there was alcoholism everywhere. There was, of course, depression. There was a terrible economic situation. There was famine. There was starvation and all of those things. And also it was kind of a little place and narrow. I felt kind of, I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to escape. And I couldn't see myself ready to work there and to stay there, to work in a factory or to work on a farm, or to even to follow my father's footsteps and to become a police officer. I couldn't see that either. As a matter of fact, that's what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to become a police officer and to marry a girl by the name of Heidi and to have a bunch of children and to run around like the Von Trapp family in The Sound of Music. But that's not what I saw. This was the vision of my parents, but not mine. And luckily, one day in school, I watched a documentary about America. And I found myself, I knew exactly that is where I wanted to end up. I wanted to be in America.
An early meeting with Dino De Laurentiis and it didn't go so well.
Well, that was different because Dino De Laurentiis had an office and he wanted me to be in Doc Savage. And he wanted me to play the villain in Doc Savage. And I walked in, and I always kind of, have a mouth that sometimes goes a little bit too fast, and I step on myself. I walked into the office, and I saw Dino standing behind his desk. And there was this huge desk, ornate with gold and kind of like French-looking or Italian-looking, I don't know what, but it was gigantic. It was one of those partner desks, right? And Dino, the only thing that stood out was kind of his chest and his head, because he's a little guy. Dino's a really short guy. So I looked in, I walked in his office and I looked in and I says, "Hi, Dino, why does a little guy like you need such a big desk?" And to Dino De Laurentiis, you never say you're little, right? Because he saw himself as a giant. So he looked at me and he says, "Schwarzenegger, you have an accent. I cannot use it." And I said, again, stupidly, who is talking about having an accent? And then listen to you. You're a Nazi. And he walked away because I had a German accent. So that was the end of that. So I left the office and my agent came up to me, grabbed me really forcefully with my arm, and he said to me, he says, "I've been an agent for 15 years. This meeting was exactly 1 minute and 14 seconds. It was the shortest meeting we've ever had. You just everything up. God damn it, it took me months to get in here." So he was mad at me also. So anyway, so that's how the relationship started with Dino. But then when he bought Conan, he came to Spain where we were shooting, and the third day of filming, after he saw the dailies, the footage that we filmed, he came up to me and he said, "Schwarzenegger, you're a Conan." And he walked off. And Milius came to me, the director, and says, "This was the greatest compliment that you can ever get." He said, "You're Conan." Isn't that great? I guess so. And from that point on, we created this really great relationship, and we did movies together. and wrote Leo, and then wrote Sonya, and Conan the Destroyer, and Conan the Barbarian, and he became kind of like a father figure. He became kind of the Reg Park that I had in the bodybuilding world, and Joe Weider. He became that character in the movie world that I could go to for anything, who would give me advice, who always had wonderful compliments, and kind of took me in as part of his family. And so that's why I always will miss him very dearly after he passed away.
what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind.